Yeah, dude, man, I had about 30 minutes to kill, and I didn't want to go in school, so I went down to the old football field down there and plugged my computer in down there and make sure everything was working. Yeah, man, so before we get into everything, man, let's kind of talk about who you are, you know what I mean, your background and stuff like that. Introduce yourself, and then we kind of go from there.
Yeah, so my name's Vincent Saylor. As far as what I do, I own a State Farm agency in Lawton. Live out here in Elgin. Also am the color commentator for Oklahoma Sports Network for the Elgin Owls. So kind of got involved with that about 6 years ago through Oklahoma Sports Network, but this will be my third year overall with Elgin, second in a row. Did 1 year back in the day with when Coach Renshaw, I think, was the coach at that point. Did 1 year there and then went to Cash for a couple years with a buddy of mine, but back home here in Elgin. We live in Elgin. My daughter's in first grade. My other one will be in pre-K 4 next year. So looking forward to having both of them there in Elgin. Grew up in New Orleans, played football, basketball, baseball, kind of growing up, things like that. Big baseball guy kind of growing up, and then played too much baseball, I guess, as a kid, and decided to had some offers for baseball, but ultimately decided to play college football. Started at the University of Central Arkansas, and then transferred after my freshman year to the University of North Alabama, where I played my final 3 years. Started there for 2 years. 2 of the 3 years I was there, went to the semifinals. Never could get over the hump and make it to the national championship game, but made it to the semifinals both years there. After undergrad and football finished, was going to go play in Canada, but needed a shoulder surgery. Had already gotten into law school, so decided to hang up the old cleats and went to law school, and went to law school for 3 years there in Birmingham, Alabama. Started practicing law for a while in Birmingham, Alabama, and got pregnant with our oldest daughter. And my father-in-law, who's an ex-college football coach, got involved with State Farm, and that's kind of how we got involved with State Farm. I was never home as a lawyer. I got home when we were pregnant. My wife said about that State Farm thing, and I said, yes, ma'am, like a smart husband I am.
Yeah.
And decided to do the State Farm thing and moved to Lawton, moved to this area in February of 2017, and opened up our State Farm office May of 17, and the rest is history.
Where did your father-in-law, where did all he coach at?
So he was kind of a D2 guy. He actually, it's a long story, but he was my high school football coach at Del Sal. I played at Del Sal in New Orleans. So he was my high school football coach there. After I got done, he moved on to his alma mater. He played college football at Delta State, and then also played in Canada for a couple of years and had a cup of coffee with the Raiders at one point. But he went to Delta State after that. In 2000, he won the national championship as defense coordinator at Delta State. And then from there, he kind of moved around a couple different places. He was at North Alabama for a little while. He was defense coordinator at UT Chattanooga. And then ultimately, he was the head coach at Arkansas Monticello, the mighty Bull Weevils, for about 7 or 8 years. Then my brother-in-law played at Ole Miss. My brother-in-law's freshman year at Ole Miss, my father-in-law was still coaching. And after that year, he decided he kind of heard about State Farm and kind of had a good opportunity with them. So he got out of coaching altogether so that way he can make it to Brishan's games. And Brishan played at Ole Miss. Can't remember the years. He played 2 years with Coach Nutt and 2 years with when Freeze got there. Okay. So yeah, football, and my wife's a college cheerleader, and so football's kind of runs the gamut in our family.
What all do you do with as far as OSN? What do you do with that?
So mostly just football. I know they do some other sports and things like that. For the most part, I've stuck with football. That's kind of my passion. That's kind of my love. So stuck with them. Like I said, this will be my 6th or 7th fall. Can't remember exactly the exact amount of years. Like I said, first year I did it, met Eric Sherem and Randy Muirhead, and Randy, those guys came in the office to sell some advertising, and looked around my office and saw some pictures of me in uniforms and some football stuff and some trophies and things, and said, wait, did you play football? And kind of told them my background. They said, hey, would you be interested? And jumped on the opportunity, thinking that it's a ton of fun. And then, like I said, did Elgin for a year, Cash for 3, and this will be my 6th year. So the color commentator, during those 6 years, actually was OSN's color commentator of the year last year. First time we had an award ceremony. So that was kind of cool to get recognized by those guys as well. So that's kind of how I got involved with OSN and what I do with them. Looking forward to this year. Got a new crew with me. So that'll be interesting to get things. Glenn Brockenbush, the newspaper guy, is actually going to come in the booth and be our play-by-play guy. And then Clay Underhill, who's an offensive lineman for the team last year, is going to be our computer guy. So be interesting to work with those guys.
That should be cool. As far as I didn't even because I've met you at the Robertson's house a couple times, and I didn't realize you worked for OSN until I was running the clock and you walked in there. I was like, hey, I know this guy.
Because you don't see us. Obviously, we live stream the games and things like that, so you don't ever see the commentators or anything. So when a lot of people hear my voice, they're like, "Wait, you sound familiar? You look familiar?" Because I also do a lot of sponsorships and stuff with the team. So actually, usually I'm in one of the quarters. I'm up there with my little mug up there as a quarter sponsor as well. So, but OSN's a great opportunity. I mean, we love it. I love doing the games. It keeps me involved in football without having to do the day-to-day grind of it. But also, like I said, and it's a great opportunity, especially for this type of community where you got such transient type people with military base and things like that to provide. I mean, I know I've talked to several parents of players, not only on Elgin, but in Cache, and even some of the away games will run into some families that are like, hey man, my cousin in Ohio is watching this week, or somebody stationed in Germany and they're getting to watch the game. They had to wake up early, but they're getting to watch the game and things like that. So that's the cool thing about it. And then too, some of the kids, I mean, they Saturday and Sunday morning after they played on Friday night, they go back and watch some of their big plays and things like that.
No, I mean, it is a cool deal because even like with wrestling, I did a couple of podcasts with Coach Rao, through the state championship season. And I had some of my good boys that hit me up prior military, like, hey, man, what's this? They didn't know what it was about. You know what I mean? It's like, in combatives, remember I was whooping your ass?
I mean, like I said, it's just a cool opportunity. Like I said, my mom's gotten hooked now. She's down in New Orleans, so she's gotten hooked. So she's an Elgin Owl fan now as well. And then, like I said, it's a cool opportunity for the kids. We try and do as good as we can as far as the broadcast goes. But like I said, it's a cool opportunity for the kids to kind of get noticed. And like I said, I mean, radio's cool, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, my games are always on radio and things, but it's just different when you can see it in action and see it live.
No, 100%. Now, let's go back to New Orleans real quick. Is it New Orleans or Nolans?
So
I need to know.
So for me now, it's New Orleans. Probably back in the day, it was more Nolans. When I went to Central Arkansas, it's a funny story because then people always say, well, you don't ever sound like you're from New Orleans. Now, when my family comes up, everybody's like, okay, now I get it. Yeah. But when I went to Central Arkansas, so I played quarterback all through college. I went to Central Arkansas, and I would make checks and things like that, and offensive line couldn't understand me. So I went to a speech coach in Arkansas my freshman year to slow down and enunciate more of my words. So that way, I've lost my New Orleans accent. So now it's kind of New Orleans. But if you ask my mom, things like that, it's more Nolans. Yeah. Everything kind of flows together.
So I'm from Southeast Oklahoma, right?
Okay.
So when I moved to Geary, Oklahoma, everybody's like, hey, he has an accent. You know what I mean? The people would be like, hey, he talks different. You know what I mean? I never knew I talked different. I didn't know. I was just talking. People understood or they don't. My wife to this day says you mumble. You know what I mean? I just talk. My first duty station, Baumholder, Germany, when I got there, nobody could understand what the shit I was saying, man. The Germans, because they're trying to learn English, and they had no clue what the hell I was saying, bro.
Right. And I never noticed, because I had always grown up with New Orleans kids, so, I never noticed. But, then and I would jump on the O-lineman, like, where the hell were you going, and this, that, and the other. And finally, our coach, the coach that I ended up playing for at Central Arkansas was from not New Orleans, but South Louisiana. Kind of got hooked up with him through a Louisiana Tech connection. And he said, I don't think they understand you. And then that's kind of how it went from there. Now, when I go home, though, everybody's like, oh, my God, you've been, because we've lived in Arkansas for a little bit, Alabama, and now Oklahoma. So they're like, oh, my God, you sound like you're.
Hey, what's that coach off the Waterboy, dog?
Yeah. Now, like I said, my father-in-law, he's been out in New Orleans just as long as I am because we both kind of left around the same time. But, I mean, you hear him talk, and he's still very yaddish and whatever. My mom comes up. I mean, she's got it, too. It's it never leaves them, but it like I said, it only left me because I had to go to a speech coach, and we worked on enunciation and all that kind of stuff. And so This is what you get now.
Man, as far as like what you do with Elgin, we had the Meet the Owls Day the other day. Mm-hmm. How did you like that, man? It
was great. I mean, my understanding, it was the first time we've done that. And the quarterback club did a great job of putting that thing together. Jen Meyer, Ritson's mom, reached out to me a couple of days before it and said, hey, would you be willing to kind of MC it or whatnot and kind of introduce some of the teams? And we, like I said, kind of gave a shout out to you guys on the wrestling side for the state championship. And I love doing that type of stuff. I mean, we're ingrained in Elgin. I mean, we live out here. Yeah, my office is in Lawton, but I mean, we live out here. My kids go to school here. Got to know a lot of the coaches and a lot of the teachers and things, and a lot of the administration there at Elgin. So we love it, and we bought in. Last year, I also emceed the senior night bonfire. So when that opportunity comes, I mean, I like doing that type of stuff. As like I said, I like doing it, but it also helps, get my name recognition out there for the State Farm business too. So it doesn't hurt that way either.
Yeah. No, as far as when it comes to Elgin sports, we had a coaching meeting with Coach Hitt this morning, and he's talking about the progression in Elgin sports and stuff. It's like now, like it's not just like Elgin football, Elgin wrestling, Elgin basketball, Elgin softball. It's just Elgin, man.
Yeah,
I really like that attitude we have with the kids because I grew up from a small town. If you was a basketball player, you didn't talk to the wrestlers,
right?
You know what I mean? Vice versa. Just how it went. But in here, man, it seems like it's. Even the coaches, they want everybody to do good. They want Elgin to do good.
Yeah, it helps that there's some bleed over in the programs, obviously. So, you've got some of the kids that play basketball. You got some of the kids that also play baseball. Same thing on the girls' side of things. Some of them play multiple sports. So that helps because, they kind of all become friends. But, Elgin's just such a close-knit community, especially the kids that are kind of going through, from what I can see from the outside kind of looking in. Ours are only in first grade now. And I think what helped too is last year, moving to 5A on the football side of things, everybody anticipated and thought, oh my God, they've been kind of bad the last couple of years. This is going to be bad. Yeah. And then the way that the boys came out and Coach White had them together and prepared and whatnot. And like I said, I had done cash previous to that. And when I first kind of decided to go with Elgin, I called Eric Sharon, who runs the network, and he was like, hey, man, I said, yeah, my kids go out to school there. I live out there. I know they haven't been good lately, and I didn't anticipate anything would happen last year. I'm glad it did, and I'm glad to be somewhat of a part of it. And but I think that helped. And, that led into wrestling. You guys, then you guys end up winning the state championship there. Baseball team ends up going to state in baseball as well. So, it just kind of, I think everything kind of fell into place at the right time in the right place and the right kids and the right coaching staffs and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's got a ton of momentum right now, and it's fun to be somewhat of a little part of it.
No, it is, man. I can remember growing up, and it's like, I grew up playing 8-man football, dog. We talked about this a little bit, man. Yeah. We just started like we have kids that do tumbling together and stuff, so we hang out a little bit on that side of it. But we was talking about this, and that's kind of how I grew up, but we didn't have a good football team, bro.
Right.
You know what I mean? It just was what it was. And then Fridays was for the party afterwards.
Right.
We won or we lost.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's just not the right attitude, man. And then so you grow up. And you're like, man, I pretty much wasted a lot of time there. And so that's one of the parts that I like, able to share this with my son now,
Yeah.
Hey, look at the learning experiences here we can get, doing the right thing here.
Oh, yeah. Football, all sports in general, but football definitely is kind of one of those things where you learn so much about, yourself, about how you are as a team member, about how you are potentially as a leader, follower, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of those traits that I learned going all the way back to Little League, not necessarily just high school and college ball. I mean, I use in my office, running a business, I use as a parent. So, I mean, some of those traits, that you get through, like I said, I reference everything a lot of times to football because that's where I'm most comfortable with. But I mean, some of the things I talk about, I learned in baseball. Some of them I learned in basketball as well. I mean, just coaches have that opportunity on young people to make such a huge impression.
Right.
And I think sometimes that goes unnoticed. And when you're living in the moment, especially as a kid, you don't think about that stuff. And then when you look back at when you're our age or whatnot, you go, I remember some of the speeches that coaches gave me and things like that. And I mean, at the time, you're just sitting there in the locker room with your head like, come on, man, let's get out of here. I'm ready to play. But then you think back at it 20 years later, and you're like, okay, I get where he was coming from there. So, that, and in a community of the size of Elgin and things like that, yes, football's not everything. There's a lot more important things in life, but it just seems like when a football team is good and has some success and it's run by good people and the kids are good kids, it just kind of makes everybody more, community oriented and kind of brings the community together a little bit better.
Yeah, man, that's one thing I've been blessed with this year is, Coach White allowed me to be out there and just kind of watch, observe, like, I'm nowhere on these guys' level, bro. As a coach, I'm not, I spend most of my time watching, following Coach Hill around, dude. That's what I do, bro. He's a linebacker coach, what I mean? And a running back coach. I watch him and try to learn. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I ran the ball, right? I never taught nobody to run the ball. So there's different things. Yeah. There's certain things I don't remember doing. I just remember doing it. I don't remember how I was taught to do it. You know what I mean?
The one thing I love about the staff that they currently have in place there, they're young, which is a good. Sometimes people are, they don't have that much experience, things like that. They have a lot more experience than people think for their age. Yeah. But they're young, so they still relate well to the kids, and the kids really respect and like all of them. The one thing I like too about it, getting to know those guys and hanging out with a lot of those guys and things like that as a group, how close they are, and you can tell that what ultimately leads to the team becoming closer and things like that. And like I said, they do a great job. Coach White's kind of at the head of things, but Jack Baker does a great job on the defense side. Adam Castro does a great job on the offensive side. And like I said, the way that they're all intertwined and can finish each other's sentences and kind of know how they think and things like that. It really, really, and then Coach Hill, he kind of keeps everything together on the strength and conditioning side, and then just being the sometimes bully in a good way. I mean that in a good way.
Dude,
the way
he like
is.
Viking, bro.
Yes, he does.
Back in the day, dude, he was a dude getting off the ship. That was Coach Hill, bro. He was getting off the ship, and it was game over at that point.
Right. But no, those guys do a great job. They're a ton of fun. They have a ton of fun doing it, and it helps obviously with winning, but still they have a ton of fun doing it. They have a ton of fun hanging out together, and that shows on Friday nights and shows even during the practices and things like that.
No, 100%, man. Like I've noticed, coming out to practice, like just different days seem like they're high up tempo.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
and Coach White seems like he's able to articulate if something went wrong at the end of practice, there's stuff we need to work on the next day,
he's not a big talker during practice. Yeah. From what I've noticed. He obviously he's calling plays and telling things and things like that, but he observes everything. And then like I said, at the end, you might not think he was paying attention to that side or this side or doing whatever. And then like I said, he kind of pulls it all together. But the one thing I like that he does too is, gives Jack and Adam that kind of autonomy to do their own things on those sides of the ball. But they all think alike, and they're all on the same page. That's the biggest and best thing about it. They all, like I said, they're all on the same page and all have that one goal in mind of to win and move further than what we did last year.
No, man, I think we will. Man, they got such a good group, like you said, and I think some of it too is like competition based, right? Mm-hmm. Like even Castro said it at the Meet the Owls night. He's like, thanks to Coach Baker for allowing our defense made me better as offensive coach, basically
Right.
what he said, right? I think that's competition based, right? And I know Baker looks at it that way. You know what I mean, he helps us coach wrestling and stuff like that. As far as your experience in college, football and stuff like that, how was y'all's practices ran?
So, we were a smaller team. So when I was at North Alabama, I played there in 2003, 2004, and 2005. We were at that time we were a Division II program. North Alabama has now moved into a 1AA program, but we were one of the top 5 Division II programs in the country. So we kind of had a well-oiled machine kind of going and things like that. We were a little undersized across both the offensive and defensive lines. So we relied a lot on speed. We were kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily in the forefront, but we were running the spread offense kind of before it was really, really into where everybody's running it now. There was some people running it obviously, but we were kind of in that forefront of running it and things like that. So our practices were all about quickness, speed, getting it done, getting it out. There was a lot of competition based things, but we weren't really that. We were physical when the game came, but we really kind of took care of each other and things like that. Cause, like I said, it wasn't really that physical. Now this is coming from a quarterback's perspective. Of course I'm saying that because they couldn't hit me and things like that. I'm sure if you asked some O lineman and D lineman, they were like, shit, we were physical as hell at practice. But the way that the coaches tried to set it up a lot of times was that way. And so it's very similar to the practices that they have now. Obviously we had full offenses, full defense. I mean, with Elgin, a lot of guys are going both ways and things like that. So, college, you didn't really have anybody going both ways. So, it wasn't a lot of, when we went good on good one-on-ones, we knew that it was a big practice. So, there wasn't a lot of that especially during the season. You did a lot of things against scout teams and things like that. But it was very similar to what they do at Elgin as far as short periods, moving from 7-on-7 to inside run to team drills and blitz drills and things like that. Red zone, very similar there. But it was all about just execution because we were kind of, like I said, we were kind of a well-oiled machine at that point. So it was all about, okay, we did focus on our opponent to a certain degree, but a lot of it was, this is what we're going to do, and they have to stop us. Not so much of how are we going to, this, that, and the other. This is what we do, so see if you can stop us. Right. And I was blessed. I had some great receivers on the outside. Made my job super, super easy. I'd throw a 3-yard, screen pass, and Anthony Merritt would go 85 yards, and I'd be 1 for 1 for 85 yards on the day, and I threw it about 4 yards. So that made it pretty cool too.
Right. As far as we talked about this a little bit, in the past, but one of the coaching changes that they made this year was getting an actual quarterback coach.
Yeah.
What, as a former quarterback, what is that? What is your brain thinking about that? What does that mean to you? What do you think that means for the team?
So, Coach Wyatt played for Tracy's dad, so they've known each other since Tracy's known him since, he was born. So it probably will help Trace at this point with somebody else at his ear. Right. At the end of the day, Coach Wyatt played receiver. So Tracy now TJ played quarterback. So he's listening to a guy that's, been in the pocket when the bullets are flying and things like that. So I think that will help out as well. And just another set of eyes on Trace. Trace now, has now started 20 games, 21 games, whatever it is. I think he came in maybe second or third game of his freshman year, but still played in those first 2. So at this point, he's got over 20 games of high school experience. Everything should start to slow down for him. And what I mean by that is the game. Those first couple starts, all you're doing is looking at the people that are about to hit you. You're not really looking and focusing. Those middle 10 to 20 starts kind of last year, he knew what the offense was supposed to be doing, and he wasn't so much concerned about the rush, but it still was in the back of his mind. Now, he should be in that position where all he's thinking about is his reads and if this safety moves here, if this corner moves here, if that linebacker moves there, this is where I go, this is where I go, this is where I go. Right. I think TJ's going to do a good job with him, teaching him some of that stuff. And like I said, I think it's just better to have another voice in the room for him, rather than the one he's heard for forever. They have Trace and him and Coach White have such a good relationship. Not saying there was anything wrong there by any stretch of the imagination, but sometimes it's good to hear from someone else and someone that's done it. And heck, TJ probably should still be playing ball somewhere. He was that talented. Just things kind of didn't pan out the way that they should have for him. So I mean, like I said, it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic works once. Like I said, it looks good at practice. It looks good, but it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic works once the games get rolling. Yeah. And it'll help too, because obviously Coach White during the game has a lot of other things to deal with, where hopefully TJ will have, can pull Trace off to the side with defenses out there and have conversations about, okay, what are you seeing? What are you seeing? And that can be kind of relayed up there to Coach Castro to see. Because right now, like I said, with the amount of starts that Trace has had now, he can look at it and he can look at a defense and say, hey, I think, I remember this play that we ran when I was a freshman. I think this would work because it looks like they're kind of lined up the same way. Right. So now that he'll have more of that opportunity to explain that to TJ, and TJ can get it up there to Coach Castro, because obviously there wasn't that much communication. Because Coach White, obviously as a head coach, has got to be involved in every snap, whether it be offense, defense, and special teams. So there wasn't as much time. I know they took time kind of in between plays here and there to kind of talk to Trace, but that'll give him another voice and another ear during the game, and I think that'll really help.
No, I agree with that too, because even we talked about a little bit earlier how he runs practice. He's supervising everything, man. It's phenomenal. I always see him looking. You know what I mean? Supervising, and it's crazy. And I'm gonna try to stop saying this, but I used to play 8-man football, and like our coach, we had 2 coaches. They did everything. Right. You know what I mean? That's probably why it wasn't no good too. You know what I mean? It's amazing to me when you got to see this run. And I want to kind of get into by saying that I want to get into Carl Albert.
Okay.
That was amazing for me. Like, I found out 2 days before I was going to coach junior high football, right? Matter of fact, it might have been the day before. Coach Hitt calls me, hey, you want to coach junior high football? Hell yeah, please. You know what I mean? Then the next day I'm on the bus going to Carl Albert for that up there. What did you hear about that? And what did you
I heard it went well. Obviously they're the standard, I guess you could say, right now in 5A. And then they've got some great players. And I heard it went well. I heard we were able to hold our own. I heard that the offensive line and defensive line was able to hold our own. And I heard we had success both sides of the ball. So that was very coming off of the year that we had, and then going there and proving it again. I think just kind of lit the fire under the Colin Donnellys and those kids to kind of, we can compete with the best. I think it was a good idea to go up there because, like I said, you kind of want to see where you are. It's one thing for a lot of people to say, oh, you're good. And you look at Daly, Oklahoman, I think picked us to win our district. A couple other people have us potentially in the top. A couple other publications have us in the top 5 in the state. It's all great and wonderful, but it's a preseason poll. Right. So you're not going to know until you start getting hit in the mouth. And every team, even though we've got basically everybody coming back, outside of a couple kids here and there, every team is different. Yeah. We had a ton of success last year, and it's basically the same kids, but this year's team is going to be different than last year's team, no matter what, even if it was the exact same kids, because the opponents, everybody's going to be a little bit different as well. So it was good to get up there. Talking to Coach White about it too, he was good to, in his perspective too, it was good to get up there and compete against the best. Right. And then, like I said, be able to hold your own. Now they've made some changes up there. They've got a new quarterback since we went up there and some things like that. So,
I've seen that. They come from Texas, right?
Yeah. So they will probably still be the standard in the districts, but in 5A. But hopefully we'll get a chance at them down the road.
So, not that I care. I think we're good either way. But just a question. I was reading into it about the rules for recruiting. They don't really necessarily account for kids out of state, correct?
My understanding, yeah, and I mean, I don't know enough about them really to kind of delve into it too much. I mean, the kid's, my understanding is the kid is committed to Oklahoma, so he wanted to be closer, to where he's going to go to school. But I don't know if he plans on an early enrollee type deal or
probably
things like that.
His parents want to be closer.
Or his parents probably want to be closer and things like that. Yeah. So I mean, if you show a legitimate reason for your move, and I mean that could be a legitimate reason for the move. I mean, the way it happens more often than it did when you and I were playing. Because it's such you've got the IMG academies and some of those kind of prep schools now. And like I said, kids are, now you got NIL on the college level. So, there's some opportunities there that get closer to kind of make some relationships and things like that. So it is what it is at this point. But like I said, I mean, I'd like to see him play. I've seen some highlights of him. Can't think of his name on the top of my head, but seen some highlights of him and can't wait to watch him play in person.
I didn't see any highlights of him at all, but from what I was told, he's legit.
Yeah, he's an OU commit, so you got to think I think he's either a 4 or 5 star kid. So usually sometimes those publications, get him wrong every now and then, but so far at this point in his career, he's obviously shown that he's good enough to get all that hype. And like I said, he's stepping into a program that's, he's got one of the best running backs definitely in the state, if not, this area, the Southeast. So they'll probably be the standard again. And hopefully we can see him down the road.
Oh God, I think we will, man. Looking at the way, like I said, that's my first show, dog. At that level, you know what I mean. But man, everything was so exciting for me just to see the kids play and stuff. Like you said, the Colin Donnellys, the Jace Williams, the Keiths. I didn't realize how big Keith was, dog.
Yeah,
I know how big Jace is because I see him all the time. Right. You know what I mean? I didn't realize how big Keith was too.
Yeah, the left side of our offensive line. When I was at North Alabama, our left side of our line was not as big as those two kids were. Really? We were a top 3 Division II team. Damn. Now like I said, some of that was by design. We were more, we were wide splits and more, fast paced things. But yeah, Jason, and the one thing about Jason Keith that's phenomenal too is they're both athletic. Yeah. They're not just, sometimes you get these kids in high school that look super big, and my high school coach, my father-in-law used to always say it looks like Tarzan plays like Jane. But those two both are not only big but athletic and can play. So interesting, curious to see kind of how those two mesh this year with another year of experience. And like I said, Jason only a junior, so he's got some things coming up. And then Keith with this is his last rodeo.
Oh, no,
so it'll be interesting to see how those two guys go. Yeah.
Speaking of seniors are going to lose this year, what about Lund?
Yeah, looking forward to him. He's been, so like I said, doing cash games in the past, obviously before the move up in the 5A, that was a big rivalry, obviously in the same district and things like that. So Matt's kind of been doing it for a while now. I think somebody said he's give or take 1,100 yards or so away from the Elgin school record.
Bro.
Okay,
800, dog.
So we're close to kind of getting that. You see, Matt, you would not think he's where he is because, like I said, he's tall, lanky, but when he gets out in the open field, it's fun.
Man.
It's fun to watch when he gets in the open field, or not even the open field. When they create a crease on some of those counters and lead plays that they run, and he gets that crease, it's pretty exciting to watch.
Now he gets really good vision. There's different types of running backs, right? Running backs that can just get on the outside and go. And there's running backs that got that vision where they can cut it and go.
He does do both pretty well. I'd like to see him catch the ball a little bit more out of the backfield. I think that might be something that we might see maybe some this year. And it's not saying it's his fault or anything like that, but just by the design of the offense. I mean, we can get him maybe some more in space. I think that potentially could help. But I mean, with him and Ritson, I mean that Ritson really helped him out last year. In that it finally gave Matt kind of somebody else to, gave him an opportunity to rest every now and then. It wasn't just all about Matt like it has been some in the past. So, like I said, those two worked well. Thunder and Lightning, I guess you could say, however you want to nickname them. It worked well last year, and I anticipate it kind of working the same this year.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So we was playing Ardmore, right? Mm-hmm. He couldn't play. Yeah, his foot, right? Right. Thank God it was just he has an extra bone in his foot, right?
Right, yeah.
Wasn't nothing crazy.
Yeah, long story, but yes, yeah.
But they had recruiters there to see the Ardmore quarterback.
Yeah,
right.
Illinois commit.
Yeah, but what they seen is Ritson Myers take off as a freshman. Yeah, right. What a year that kid had, right?
Yeah. I mean, he everybody knows Ritson. Ritson's Ritson. Yeah. But yeah, just, a great athlete. Like I said, unbelievable on defense. I don't remember the exact amount of tackles, but, 70, 80, 90 tackles on defense, and then 900 yards, whatever it was, rushing on offense, and only a freshman. He provides a little bit maybe more power than Matt, but still when he gets to the open field, he runs away from people as well. So it's a good 1-2 punch there. And like I said, the type of year that he had, and then rolled right into winning state and wrestling, and then, pitching and doing everything he did with baseball to get them to state too. He had a heck of a freshman year. It'll be a hard one to follow, but if anybody could do it, I think he could.
Yeah, 100%. As far as that goes, is when it comes to next year, like you brought up earlier, we got a lot of the kids coming back, right? Mm-hmm. What's the significance of that from you that somebody's played football at a higher level? It's having the same team coming back in high school.
Well, we talked a little bit about it with Trace. So, for Trace, the game's starting to slow down. Now, and it's the same thing for Jace and for Keith, and there's going to be a front, they're going to line up in either a 3-4 or 4-3 or a bear front or whatever. They've seen it before. Yeah. So they can kind of, flip through that Rolodex in their head and say, okay, this was like Guthrie did, so we need to, when we screwed up, we didn't scoop right. So now this time we know we need to scoop. Another thing too about it is you've now, I hate to use the terminology of, been to battle with it, but you've been to battle with all those guys. So you know what to expect from Ritson when things get tough. You know to expect what Trace, it knows what Jace is going to do, what, the Crabtrees are going to do, and all that kind of stuff. So, all that goes a long way. Colin and Ritson have had a year to play on defense next to each other. So Colin knows, okay, Ritson sometimes does his own thing potentially. So that means I've got to make sure that I've got to get there, and they work well together on that. So Colin, like I said, Colin runs that defense and does a great job there along, like I said, Coach Baker will tell you, he's kind of a coach on the field. So he knows that Ritson sometimes will, but Ritson uses athletic ability and a lot of times makes a play. Jack Ainsley is just unbelievable on the outside out there. If you see him, you would never think it. But all those guys playing together and knowing what to expect of each other will go a long way into that. And like I said, you're a year closer. Now you've got some wins behind you, but then you also have a lot of them were playing when things weren't going very good. So they know we don't want to go back there. So I think all that will definitely help. And then, like I said, just at the end of the day, they all know what to expect from each other. It's not really, they've gone through, last year they went through 11 battles together. Last year, knock on wood, we outside of Matt's kind of little injury, and then who's the line? Casey Britton. Yeah. We stayed fairly healthy. Had some minor things throughout the year for some of the kids that kind of went unnoticed, but if we can stay healthy like we did last year and I think good things are waiting.
As a quarterback, as a quarterback perspective, former quarterback yourself, what do you think about Trace's progression?
So I saw him play a couple times as a freshman, and was very surprised that he was only a freshman. Right. Then find out more, then come to Elgin and know he's a sophomore, and then find out more about kind of the family pedigree, I guess you could say, or whatever. His dad being principal, but an old high school coach, and brothers played and all that kind of stuff. So you can see that he loves football. You can see that he knows football. From my understanding, talking to Coach White too, he's kind of a gym rat and likes watching film and likes going out there and working with. And I'll drop out of the stadium sometimes, or even before the games, things like that. He's out there with Andre Crabtree or Trey Crabtree, or throwing routes out of solos and things like that. So I mean, he's a very, very good high school quarterback. And he's got 2 more years to prove it. I think he's got the ability, in my judgment, to play at the next level. Right. Not sure. I mean, he's big enough. He's definitely big enough. Looks like I don't know if he's put on some weight this year or not. I don't know if he looks taller or not. Maybe an inch or 2 taller, but he looks leaner. I mean, I don't know if maybe now he's got to be a junior, losing some of that quote unquote baby fat or what. Right. So I'm expecting big things from him this year. Because he didn't miss a single. My understanding is he didn't miss a single day during off-season workouts, and that goes a long way. I mean, when at the end of the day, no matter who your quarterback is, he's always going to be a leader, whether or not he's a vocal kid or not. Trace isn't necessarily the most, from what I can see. I'm not in the locker room every day and things like that. Trace isn't, from what I can see on the field and when I see at the practice I go, Trace isn't necessarily the most vocal type leader. Right. But as a quarterback, everybody's always looking at you as the leader. Yeah. From what I can tell too, he's pretty even keeled. So that goes a long way. But just being there every day, being the first one in, the last one out, like I said, not missing a single workout during the summer. I saw he went to some quarterback camps and went to some quarterback schools and things like that up in the city and some other places. So he's doing all the right things. And now, and he's done very good as a freshman and sophomore. So now it's time to just take that, in my opinion, take that next step and start to show kind of what he is. I mean, some publications say he's one of the best 20 quarterbacks in the state, and I would agree with that, and I'd probably even put him maybe in the top 10. Right. With the amount of experiences that he has. I think the main thing he's got to get better on is maybe some of that intermediate game. Throws a great deep ball, but I think some of those, he throws a great comeback on the run. But I think some of those middle of the field, intermediate in route, curl routes, things like that is something that he needs to improve on. And I think from the practices that I've been to so far, I think he is improving on it. And they didn't throw him as much because he was young. But now that he's older and can pick through some of that stuff now and realize, okay, I can't slide it in there, but I can slide it in here. We'll only make him better, and then ultimately make the whole team better. Because if you can kind of start opening up some of that middle, that opens up a lot more for deep balls to Crabtree, and then also opens up some lanes potentially for Matt and Ritson as well. So it'll be fun.
As far as when the quarterback goes, if you had to choose one thing that a quarterback had to be the best at, what would it be? I know it's a difficult question because he's a different quarterback. Like you got Cam Newton's, that's good at running.
But I think at the end of the day, it's all about the even keelness. Quarterback, there's so many highs and lows. You get all when you're winning, you get all the publicity. When you're losing, you get all the gripes and things like that. And sometimes it's not even your fault. So just, my thought process is just that even keelness mentality of nothing's going to rattle me. Because as a quarterback, you can't sometimes be like most football players. I mean, yes, you want to celebrate and all that kind of stuff, but you get super hyped up, and as a linebacker, you can just run through a wall. I mean, you get super hyped up as a quarterback. The next ball is going to go 20 euros up in the stands because you're amped up and things like that, and then you get too low, and the whole team's looking at you going, "Well, we don't want to follow this dude."
Yeah.
So I mean, I think, in my opinion, and in the inside, you may be nervous as hell and pissed off as hell or happy as hell, but on the outside, you got to kind of always have that just even keelness and whatever. And then you also got to know, you got to know what your team needs at that moment. It's like that. Trace isn't the most vocal guy, but if he needs to be, I think he has it in him. And I've seen him do some things where, if somebody's not doing something right, you might have to jump on somebody's ass.
Right.
But then also, if somebody, hasn't been doing right and does something great, you need to go over there and be the first one, slap on the butt and say, dude, thanks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the one thing, too. I mean, about you've got to interact with everybody, even the defense. Because even the defense still looks at the quarterback, even though it's on the opposite side of the ball, as kind of that, we're going to only go as far as you do. And so, I mean, I think that, like I said, that kind of even keelness, level-headedness would probably be mine. Because there's a ton of kids that can throw 80 yards. There's a ton of kids that can run 4 threes and this, that, and the other that don't amount to much. Yeah. And so that would be even the ones that get super high, like super hype. At the end of the day, they still have that even keelness to them. The biggest thing though is you're going to make mistakes. You're going to throw interceptions. You just brush it off and go on to the next one.
Man, growing up in the military, man, that's one of the things that we was always taught. If you're panicking, your soldiers are going to panic. You know what I mean? That's end of the day, man.
And that's and at the end of the day, the quarterback is who everybody always looks to.
Yeah.
When shit's going bad, when shit's going bad, when shit's going good, they're still going to look at you. Yeah. And if you're over there, throwing your helmet and crying and doing whatever, then they, oh shit, here he goes again. We ain't gonna be worth a shit now. Or you're over there dancing in the stands because you threw a touchdown. Like, he ain't paying attention to the game and whatever else.
So we was talking about Armour earlier, and that's one of the stories I heard. The recruiters that watched the Armour quarterback and stuff. Right. He's throwing a fit down there. Right. Nobody's blocking for him, this and that. Right. You know what I mean? What do you think everybody else is going through? His teammates are going through. What's going on here? Right. That's poor leadership. Yeah. Sometimes you got to get in that ass, but at the end of the day, you ain't playing good too, bro. You know what I mean?
And high school kids and college kids and even little league kids, will know that. Yeah. So you can't be a fake tough guy. You can't be. So that's one thing, like I said, that he's done good this summer. Being there every day, being accountable. So they know that they can count on him. They know he's going to be there. They know he's going to work as hard as anybody else on the team. And that all goes a long way. Yeah. When you run into a kid, like I said, I don't know much about the Armour kid, but yeah, looking at his body language and some of the stuff that he was during that game. Yes, he was talented and he could throw the ball good and all that kind of stuff. But when we left there, I was happy that we had Trace and they had him. So
yeah, no doubt.
That goes a long way.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I'm not talking negative about the dude at all, but I think, I guarantee he learned from that situation. Yeah. I guarantee his coaches pulled him to the side like, look, bro. We got to calm down a little bit.
I talk about that being the best trait. In high school, I was not that kid. I got a lot better with it in college. But in high school, I wasn't necessarily the low when the lows were bad, and I wasn't necessarily dancing in the stands when the highs were good, but if bad things happened, I would lose my shit. Right. I had a temper, so when things didn't go, and I had to learn. It took 2 or 3 coaches to be like, you're super talented, but this shit has to stop. Yeah. And it took some team members too saying, dude, what are you doing? You're a quarterback. And so, it's easy for me to sit here and say what Trey should do now, but as a high school kid, I wasn't I wasn't necessarily doing some of that stuff. I still was able to play in college. And once I got to college, you started to learn that stuff and things like that. My first year at North Alabama, my sophomore year, quarterback ahead of me, who's now the head coach at Southern Miss, Will Hall, won the Division II Heisman Trophy. It's called the Harlan Hill Trophy. I was taller, faster, could throw a ball further, way more talented than Will ever thought about being. But that year that I sat there as a backup, I learned more probably about playing quarterback than I had in every year that I'd been a starting quarterback, because he was just OG golly shucks, Mississippi kid. All the players absolutely loved him. He knew the offense. He knew the offense inside and out.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't watch as much film before him. Watched way more film after him, because I sat there on the sidelines and was like, he threw that ball before that dude was even remotely out of the break, and before I got a better arm than that, so I'm going to hold it as long as possible and then gun it in there at the last second.
Right.
And so that year as a backup, I learned more than any time that I played. Because Will, like I said, ate, slept, drank football. His dad was one of the best Mississippi high school football coaches to live. I mean, his dad's in the Mississippi High School Hall of Fame. So, I mean, he ate, drank, and slept football. Right. I mean, I loved football, don't get me wrong. I love it probably more now than I did when I played, which is unfortunate, but we all grew up. But yeah, that one year backing him up in 2003, and like I said, you put us on the track, I was faster. You say, hey, y'all throw it as far as you can. I could throw it farther. I was a couple inches taller, whole 9 yards. But he, like I said, I mean, he ultimately, we lost in the semifinals to North Dakota, but he ended up going on and winning the D2 Heisman Trophy that year. And I mean, when he accepted the award, you'd be like, who's this 12-year-old? Because he was about 5'8" and probably about 5'8", 5'9", probably about 185, 190 pounds.
Y'all still talk?
Yeah. Will and I, he's the head coach of Southern Miss now. He's turned the program around. He got some good transfers in this year, and we talk probably once a month or so during football season. We usually talk about once a week, either on Fridays or Sundays. Right. And then our other roommate, I never lived together, but my roommate from college he's a consultant at Louisville. He was OC at Notre Dame. He's been the OC at Memphis, Tennessee, some pretty big places. He's now, like I said, he's one of those consultants now at Louisville. Right. And so that I get my fix in from them too during the season about what's going on and all that kind of stuff, and then through Elgin football as well.
I mean, so we know what happened last year, but let's look forward a little bit. We got our first scrimmage this year.
Yep.
I said this year. It's Friday at Bethany.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What do you think? What's your anticipation with that?
I mean, in scrimmages and things like that, and the way that Oklahoma high school football is set up with you have a couple scrimmages, and then you've got your non-district play, which really, not that it doesn't matter, but record-wise it doesn't matter. Yeah. You're wanting to get out of there healthy. You want to put your kids in positions to be successful, but to also have some struggles and things like that as well. I would think on the offensive side of things, you're going to be pretty vanilla. You're going to kind of run some of your base plays. You're not going to probably do too much crazy. The main thing is, like I said, you want to get some good work in for your starters. You want to get some real good work in for those kids that you're not quite sure about yet.
Right.
That was kind of the thing. I mean, I remember going to the Bethany scrimmage last year, which was here.
Yep.
And no one knew what Ritson could be. It was kind of I think he's going to be the backup running back, but talking to Coach, if I remember the conversations right, talking to Coach White kind of before that, I think he's going to be the backup running back. He's pretty good. I think he's going to play some of the linebacker. I know he's a freshman. And it's one of those things where some kids just pop when the lights come on, and there's some other ones but that was one that I can definitely think of on the top of my head where it was like, oh, we may have something here. And then it wasn't until maybe Ardmore when Matt couldn't play. I mean, he did pretty good in that first game against Anadarko, but then once we kind of rolled into Ardmore, and he started doing some things, it was like, oh, okay. So you want to see, going back to the scrimmage this year, like I said, you want to see some good work from your ones, but you want to come out of there healthy.
Right.
And then on the back end of that, you want to, some of those kids, some of those freshmen that are now moved up to the varsity, some of those sophomores and juniors that didn't play that much last year, you want to see those guys against somebody other than yourself and kind of see what they're like when the lights are on and kind of some of that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how some of those guys come in and play. On the defense side of the ball, same thing. I don't know if they're going to make quarterbacks live or what's going to happen there. So on the defensive side of things, you want to make sure your gap sound, make sure you're in the right positions, and same thing on that end. You want to get a lot of work in for your ones, but some good work, and make sure that everybody's on the same page. We're lined up right, making the right calls. And then get those guys out of there and kind of see what some of those younger kids can do. Same thing that next week, you're probably even less than that because you're 1 week away from playing the big game. And I know next week's kind of got 2 or 3 schools that we're going to be kind of going with. So I think you'll probably see some. And then once non-district rolls around, non-district sometimes depends. I hadn't really talked to Coach White much, but some coaches use it kind of as a testing ground of some of the new toys and trinkets that they've learned in the off season. So you might see some more throws from Trace in the middle of the field to kind of see how he's reacting to that stuff. You might, on the defensive side of the ball, you may see some different fronts. You may see some different things. Part of it to see is what this year's group and what this works best. Part of it's also to put as much weird stuff on tape for the other coaches when they start preparing for you.
Yeah.
And it just, but like I said, with the way that Oklahoma high school football set up, those non-district games, obviously you want to win them and you want to get some momentum and that was the biggest part last year. And at Arco, we were down, I don't know, probably mid-second quarter, and it was like, oh, this is going to be a long year.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, Brody makes an interception as a freshman, takes it back to the house. There's some things that happened. Then all of a sudden, they gained a ton of momentum from that game, and it just kind of kept going and kept going and kept going.
Man, I had a conversation, but I'm pretty sure it was Anadarko. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but they was talking about Jack Angeli, right? So Jack Angeli, he started playing football when he was in 7th grade. Now he's just a hell of a defensive man, right? That kid can go, right? And they was talking about this video, and on the video, like he's getting double teamed, right? And he crossed their legs and still makes a tackle.
That wouldn't surprise me. Like I said, you see him, you would definitely not think he plays defensive end. But Coach Baker will be the first to say, he's an unbelievable football player. I don't know, and I think he's a senior.
No.
Okay.
He'd be a junior.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it'll be, I don't know if college football's in his future or not, just because of if he grows into his body, I think definitely he would. But just his, when you're up in the press box and you've been up there as well, it's just arms and legs. That's all you kind of see. But some kind of way he's kind of like Gumby. Bends around that corner and gets under people, and like I said, splits, slides under their legs and whatever else, and makes some unbelievable plays in the backfield. And it kind of starts with, everything kind of starts with Colin a little, because he's the one that kind of makes all the calls and gets everybody in the right spot. But he does a heck of a job of running things down from the backside and just creating havoc. And then Jace in the middle, is just a hoss.
Oh,
and then I'm looking forward to seeing Shea Spencer as well. He's gotten
Shea's a hell of an athlete.
He's a great athlete. Looks like he's kind of like Trace a little. Like I said, may have lost. Like I said, baby fat's not the right word, but I don't know what other way to say it. Like just gotten mature and now kind of more in the man's body rather than the boy's body.
He's told me he's weighing about 225 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
and I mean that doesn't sound huge for an offensive and defensive lineman, but with his athletic ability, that goes a long way. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing those guys as well, and then Ritson and Donnelly obviously are always fun to watch. But their job is a lot easier when Jace and Shea and with Keith plays defense, things like that are clogging up stuff. Because when they're clogging up stuff and holding up people, I mean, it gives Ritson and Colin kind of free reign to hit the gaps and get in there and make some of those big hits that they make and things like that.
Heck yeah.
Peyton too. Peyton's fun to watch too.
Yeah. As far as this coming year, a lot of our big games we had last year was away games.
Mm-hmm.
This year they're home games.
Yeah. We've got MacArthur here.
What about that last year, man? What an amazing way to win that game.
That was kind of a make or break game. I mean, we had been rolling. We had to slip up there at Noble. I know Noble lost a lot, so we'll have Noble home. I know everybody's probably got that one circled because some of the after game antics and some things like that. So I think some of the guys on the team will probably want to play Noble.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get them at home. So that'll be nice. But yeah, the MacArthur, like I said, it was kind of that make or break game. You know, are we for real? I mean, yeah, we ran through some of the softer part of our schedule, but now we've got kind of MacArthur and Midwest City to kind of end the thing. And, you know, we lose that game and we could ultimately maybe even fall completely out of the playoffs.
Right.
And to see them fight back, stay in it. You know, things weren't going the greatest, and there was some things going on with some of their offensive linemen and things, and to not kind of give up and lose our heads and things, and then to kind of stay in it, and then the way that we won it was unbelievable. I mean, everybody knows Mike's catch and unbelievable catch, but probably a lot of people forget that on fourth down we kind of ran like a curl route, and Mike made an unbelievable kind of catch in a crowd of people. It was a great throw by Trace as well. That was probably more important than the diving catch in the end zone. So the way they fought back there, I mean, that gave us all the momentum and kind of cemented that we were there to play. And, you know, we were one of the big boys in the district now.
That boy can go, too. He's quick, man.
Who, Mike?
Yeah. He's quick, man. He's all business. Smart kid, too.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I've heard nothing but great things about all three of them. But yeah, that, like I said, everybody sees the catch and it's all over the place, and you hear the call of it, and we completely went unprofessional and was yelling and screaming and was incoherent. But like I said, looking back on it after the fact, I mean, that fourth down catch, if he doesn't make that, I mean, we're not in a position to even make the throw there. And that catch was probably bigger than that other one. So yeah, I mean, you've got them at home. They're going to be pissed, obviously. Now they lost a lot of people. The one thing about it, a lot of teams from what I can remember from the rosters and things like that, a lot of the teams lost a lot. So I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people have us, you know, up there. Midwest City, I mean, you're replacing a 4-year starter. I mean, that kid that played quarterback for them, I think is down at UNLV, was an unbelievable high school football player. And I mean, we had him up until that last drive, and he showed why he was a D1 type of kid on that last drive. So yeah, I mean, Brody could probably tell you we're one step away from, you know, Brody knocking that ball down and us moving away with the district championship. So I think we can get right back there. Like I said, we got Noble at home, we got MacArthur at home. We do have to go to Midwest City. We go to Duncan. So there's some big game. I mean, Altus is going to be a little bit better.
Got a rivalry game there too, right?
We got Cash there week 2. Cash will probably be a little bit better than they were last year.
Why is that?
They've got a decent amount of kids back. They did lose some pretty big offensive linemen, but they've got still kind of buddies with Coach Farron Griffin. He likes the makeup of this team a little bit better. The last couple years, he according to him, a lot of kids were playing individually. He likes the makeup of this team a little bit better. My understanding, they've switched the offense a little bit to kind of suit more of Tyler Harbin's athletic ability. Tyler was a quarterback there last year, played receiver for them when he was a sophomore. Super athletic kid. So they're kind of going more into the RPO type stuff rather than the kind of speed sweep stuff that they did in the past. So I think they'll be a little. I think they'll be a little bit better. Obviously, that's always a big game for Elgin, and with it being at home this year, I think
it's gonna be big, dog.
Yeah, I think it'll be packed. I think that we'll win that one. Weatherford, I don't know much about Weatherford. They've been so good in the past, but in the last couple of years, it just kind of fell down. So I think we roll. If you ask me today, I think we roll into district play 3-0. If we play like we did last year and play like we're capable of. And then from there, I mean, anything can really happen. Because if you would ask anybody preseason what Elgin would have did, 95% of them picked us either 6th or 7th. So you don't know. I mean, Ardmore, they kind of relied on that quarterback so much last year. He's gone now, so I don't know how they restock, but I mean, maybe something different there. El Reno ended up, we handled El Reno fairly well at home, but we got to go on the road on that one. They ended up playing well towards the end of the year and making it into that 4th playoff spot. So they're going to be decent.
You brought that up earlier a little bit about like some of the teams we played. We had good matchups against. Didn't El Reno beat Noble after they beat?
Yeah, and El Reno ended up beating, I think, Noble. I think they ended up beating Mac. Like I said, they ended up after that game. I mean, at that time, they might have been, I don't remember what their record was at that time, but I mean, definitely didn't see them getting into that 4 spot. But then a couple different things happened. Like I said, Noble kind of slipped up against a couple people. Mac did too. And like I said, El Reno, I wouldn't say snuck in because they played their way into that. They might have even been the 3 spot. I can't remember who. It was us, Midwest City, obviously 1 and 2. I can't remember who was 3 and 4. But El Reno was one of the ones. I know that kind of got in there. So, like I said, I mean, injuries play a major part in it. I mean, knock on wood. Last year, like I said, Casey was an unfortunate deal with the way that things happened there. And then Matt missed that one game. Like I said, a bunch of kids battled through some injuries throughout the year that if they can stay more healthy this year, they'll have bigger years. But injuries is the key thing. I mean, you lose a big starter or somebody that's going both ways a ton. I mean, that's gonna put you behind the 8 ball a little. But the one thing about where the program is now, we're pretty. I would say we're deeper than we ever have been because some of those kids that were in 8th grade last year that are now freshmen can come in and play, and some of the kids that were freshmen that are now sophomores can come in and play pretty good. So, I mean, we're sitting, like I said, depth-wise, we can handle an injury or two depending on who it is.
Right. So, we've been going for about an hour and 10 minutes, right?
Wow, okay.
I know, it flies, it flies, brother. I would just like to talk about a little bit like what we're trying to do here.
Okay.
I mean, as far as the program, we had talked about maybe doing this every Wednesday, right? Throughout the football season.
Yep.
That way we can get it posted by Thursday, right?
Okay.
So I think we should go live every Wednesday, right?
Okay.
And then the Thursday it would be the edited down version.
Okay.
That'd be the only difference.
Okay.
And then, with some, like, I don't know, we have some guests on and stuff like that, football coaches kind of talk about what's coming up the next season. Because you kind of talked about, or not next season, next game, you talked about a little bit, have kind of a preview.
Yeah.
What's your idea with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we can do is kind of have a review of the last week, kind of talk about what went right, what went wrong, and then kind of a preview, and then of the upcoming matchup. We can see if we can get some coaches and some other football fanatics or something in here to kind of see what their thoughts are, and run with it from there.
No, I think we got a lot of good fan base here too. I was going to say this earlier, but I got sidetracked with something else. But Elgin's fan base, dude.
Yeah,
like these guys are wild. Did you see the way they got the stadium set up this year? They got a whole new section for the band.
So the band, So for those that don't know, the band is now going to be in the end zone by the field house there. Quarterback club and the band boosters got together and got that knocked out and got those bleachers set up. So it's going to give another big spot on the home side for some visitors, for some fans. And yeah, I mean, they built a ton of momentum last year.
Yeah.
I think everybody is super excited about this year. I think having last year, we didn't get the first two games were on the road, so we didn't really get home until we were 2-0. A lot of last year was a lot of firsts. It was the first time that I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but it was the first time we made the playoffs in X amount of time. It was the first time we were playing for a district title in X amount of time and things like that. So first time we had a home playoff game in a while. So, I mean, and you sit here and return everybody. So everybody's really looking forward to this year. And we definitely want y'all to come out and watch all the games. I mean, I broadcast the games. If you can't make it, I'd love you to watch them, but I'd rather you be in the stands because it makes it more fun, and you can always go back and watch my broadcast after for all I care. And we got some good ones at home. I mean, the Cash one's Cash always, that's a big rivalry, and Cash travels well for that one. And then, so, I mean, I expect a ton of people there. First game of the season, since with the momentum that we built last year, I think there's going to be a ton of people there. You got MacArthur at home, so I think Mac's going to bring some people as well. Noble, I think, trying to avenge that loss from last year. People 100%. Are going to be about that one. It'll be a fun ride no matter what.
No, 100%, man. Well, that's kind of it, man. Is there any shout outs, anything you want to give out right now? Give a shout out to your insurance company, anything?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking to find new customers and things like that. We're Vincent Saylor State Farm, located at 2401 West Gore Boulevard in Lawton, 580-699-2771. Call us. We'll take a look at all your insurance stuff, and then we'll definitely talk some football with you as well.
100%.